everyone, welcome back to my channel and welcome if you're new. My name is Brianna and this is the second video in my Healing and Coping after pregnancy loss series. If you did not know, not only is October Breast Cancer Awareness Month, which is a very important cause, and my heart goes out to those who have been or are being affected by breast cancer, but it's also Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month. And I personally have dealt with pregnancy loss, and so I started a series on my channel that's going to go for 4 videos, 1 a week for the month of October. The first one I posted last week, and it was telling my story of losing my daughter at 19 weeks pregnant, and today's video is going to be my story of suffering from ectopic pregnancy after that miscarriage the following year. The third video, if you're interested, will be if you don't want to hear the stories and just want to know how I got through it. Next week's video will be how I got through it and just trusting God through the process and everything that's helped me to cope and continue to heal, because I feel like it is a continuous process. And then the last video, if you're looking forward to something really fun and just to show you that there are blessings after a storm, will be my video of my blessing with my rainbow baby, my daughter London, after my pregnancy loss. So those are my videos for each week, and like I said, today's will be my ectopic pregnancy story. And I just pray that this story, just by me telling my story, helps bless you in some way, encourages you, or maybe helps you feel better and makes you feel like you have someone to relate to. So I'm just going to go ahead and jump into the video. So I actually suffered from ectopic pregnancy the year following losing my daughter at 19 weeks. I forgot to mention it in the first video, but I actually lost my daughter at 19 weeks the week of my birthday. I lost her May 16th, well, delivered her, gave birth to her, and she died in the same day, May 16th, and my birthday is May 20th. And with this ectopic pregnancy, I actually suffered it the same week, the following year, May 19th. And again, my daughter's birthday was the 16th and my birthday is on the 20th. So needless to say, that was a hard week, but I did have a really fun week after that when I was pregnant with my daughter London that same week, and I was getting to remember her siblings, but at the same time I was pregnant with this rainbow baby, so that was a blessing. But that was a really hard week for a while, and it is still a very, very, very special week to me, and not just because of my birthday. But what happened the day of my ectopic pregnancy, we had just found out that we were pregnant, myself and my husband. The only people we ever tell really early on is family, and then like close friends that are like family to us. Other than that, we don't tell anyone past a certain point. That probably may change in the future, who knows, but that's just what we did then. And so I just found out, I maybe knew for maybe a week that I was pregnant. And I remember that back then I was a substitute teacher, and I remember going to school that day. I had to sub for a class, and the class just happened to be beside one of my best friends who was a teacher. And I went to her classroom, and I had waited to tell her that I was pregnant, because we had both been wanting to be pregnant again, and be pregnant together, and because she already had kids. And it ended up working out later on, but at this point, so we talked about it all the time, and during like the lunch hour, I went to her break and told her that I was pregnant, and she was excited. I'm just gonna go ahead and let you know that once I found out I was pregnant, I was excited, but I was also extremely fearful. I did not trust God the way I should have. I was in fear, and I just feel like you block your blessings, and just you allow so many other negative things to happen when you have a mindset of fearfulness. Of course, with pregnancy, there's just so much that can happen. I feel like the only way to really be able to enjoy your pregnancy is if you just put it in the hands of God. That's just me personally speaking, in my opinion, and that's something that definitely I switched up when I was pregnant with London, and I had an amazing pregnancy with London. But back to the ectopic pregnancy, I was fearful, and rightfully so, because I had just experienced one of the worst things that's ever happened to me, which was the year before losing my daughter at 19 weeks. And I had had bleeding that entire pregnancy, like I mentioned in the video, and we still don't know why I ever had that bleeding. So what I was concerned about with the ectopic pregnancy was having bleeding again and not knowing why. Not so much as getting the infection, which is ultimately what caused me to go in preterm labor, but just bleeding. And so every 2 seconds I would go to the bathroom just to make sure I wasn't bleeding. And to be honestly, if that pregnancy would have carried on, I would have been in fear the whole time, and I wouldn't even been able to enjoy it. I would have been going to the bathroom every 2 seconds for 9 months, worried about bleeding. So my mindset just wasn't in the right place, and I've learned so much since then, and it helped me to have just an amazing pregnancy with London. But back to rewinding, so that's what I was doing. I was fearful. Someone had a negative mind space, because when you're in fear, fear is the opposite of faith, and God couldn't move. Not that he caused it or anything like that, but he couldn't, help me through it if I wasn't going to give him any leeway. I basically tied his hands by being in fear. And so that's what happened. I would go to the restroom every 2 minutes. So I told my friend who's a teacher, and right after that I went to the restroom, and I had bleeding. And it wasn't a lot. It wasn't like what it was with my daughter Madison, but it was something. It was tinged. Now, early in pregnancy you can have bleeding, don't get me wrong, and it means nothing. It doesn't mean that anything's wrong at all, especially like light pink tinged. I'm sorry if it's TMI, but it's probably women watching this video. But that's what I had, was like the light or whatever. But because of the experience I had just had, anything was like freaking me out. And so I was like, oh my gosh. And so I texted my friend, because we were back in class, who's a teacher, and she reassured me like it's probably just early, which it can be, just an early sign of pregnancy and not be anything. And so I was like, okay. Mind you, I was feeling fine the whole day other than that, and then I was freaked out once I saw that. And I came home. My sister, who was in the delivery room when I delivered Madison, had come to my house that day, and I was telling her about it, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not losing another baby. Like, I don't know why I'm having this, because from that point on, from when I saw that at school till I got home, it just, every time I went to the bathroom, the same thing was happening. And it hadn't been happening any day up until that point or anything like that. So I told my husband, John, he was at work, then he went to the gym, his like daily routine. And I was like, I'm gonna go to the hospital. I was like, I'm not messing around. I'm going to the hospital now. I had that in my head that if anything crazy, like, or anything that was any type of red flag, I was gonna go to the hospital or the doctor or whatever the case may be, depending on the time of day. It was after hours. Like I said, I went to school that day of the doctor's office, so I had to go to the hospital. And in retrospect, I believe it was the Holy Spirit prompting me to go, because once I got to the hospital, things went downhill from there. But I told John I wanted to go, so when he came home, we went to the hospital. So at the hospital that there's usually an ER nurse that is just well versed on multiple topics, but not on a specific thing. So they can't diagnose usually if it's a specialty thing. They're mostly just more of a broad spectrum of things is what they deal with. So of course this doctor didn't have knowledge of pregnancy, but he had to check me because that's his job. And honestly, he looked so terrified. Like he honestly looked like he did not know what he was doing, and I could tell. So I was so happy that because I'm pregnant, they have to get in contact with your OB. So basically he was just checking me before the OB got there. I don't even know if we ever heard anything from him again, but thankfully. The partner to my OB, because they kind of switched back and forth on hospital duty, is the one that ended up coming. And before he got there, they sent me for a ultrasound, which is what they'll do if you're pregnant and have to go to the ER. And when they sent me for the ultrasound, that's when things, or right before they sent me for the ultrasound, that's when things started progressively getting worse. I was really, really nauseous, and mind you, I hadn't ate in a long time just because I wasn't hungry. and I just didn't have an appetite, but I didn't really know why. And so one of the nurses asked me when was the last time I ate, and I told her, and she's like, yeah, that was a long time ago. It had been hours, and I had a bottle of water in my purse. So she brought me some saltine crackers, asked me if I wanted some, and I had those. And even after the crackers, I was just so nauseous, just super, super nauseous. And it was just weird. Like, I would get nauseous from time to time before that. Not like a pregnancy nausea or even a period nausea. It was just strong nausea, like I was about to throw up, and I ended up throwing up. And so they were like, okay, no more crackers for you because we don't know, you know, what's wrong or whatever, and we can tell you're like sick. So then they sent me for the ultrasound, and at that point I started getting worse. I was super nauseous, and then I was like in pain. And when you're early on in pregnancy, they can't check you over top of the belly. They have to go inside. Sorry if it's TMI, because you're too early to be for them to see the baby like just doing it on top of your belly. And so they did that, and it was the most painful thing I've ever experienced. And she also had to press on my belly, and that was so painful. Now, mind you, ultrasounds like that, even early on in pregnancy, are not painful. So they're not supposed to be painful, and they are not painful. So for that to be painful, I knew something was up. And then she had asked me if I had taken fertility drugs, and I was like, no. And I thought that was just a really weird question. Of course, you know, your ultrasound techs are not allowed to say anything or say much or really tell you anything, because they have to just report right straight to the doctor. And so they'll give you like basically nothing. And so that's what happened. And she didn't really say anything. She just asked me if I took fertility drugs, and she was apologizing the whole time. She was checking me. She's like, I'm so sorry, baby. I'm so sorry. I know. I see a fluid. She's like, which I don't even know if she was supposed to say that, but she was sweet because she could tell I was in a lot of pain. And she's like, I know. I see what's wrong. I'm so sorry, baby. So she knew, I think she knew what was going on, obviously. And then of course I didn't know anything, and so she knew I was in so much pain, and probably knew it was a lot of pain considering the circumstances. So I got back to my room and all of that, and so finally my on-call doctor came, and he let me, from my OB office, and let me know what was going on, and said that I was having an ectopic pregnancy and they were going to have to do surgery. Now, if you don't know what ectopic pregnancy is, I actually knew what it was when he let me know, because my mom had suffered from ectopic pregnancy, and it was a really, really bad. These ectopic pregnancies are really, really serious. A lot of times women will lose the tube that the baby's in. So first, let me explain. It's when the fertilized egg, the baby, you have two tubes that go to your uterus. It's the baby, when it's fertilized, it's supposed to travel, and I say baby, but it's supposed to travel to your uterus and burrow itself there, and that's when the baby will continue to grow. But it'll, in an ectopic pregnancy, it'll get stuck in one of your tubes on its way down to travel to the uterus. So you can look that up. But that's pretty much the gist of it. But my mom had suffered from one, and I knew how serious it was. It was to the point where she almost died. And just a lot of time, if your tube erupts, your body would can fill up with bleeding, or like bad things happen with ectopic pregnancies. So I knew that it was a really serious situation, and that's why they had to have surgery. And I was just like, oh my gosh, because like I said, I knew what it was. And of course he went in depth about it, but he was like, you know, you're not, thankfully my tube hadn't burst. So I was still like in the okay zone, but they had to get it out now. Like, they couldn't wait, because my tube could bust at any moment, or burst, I'm sorry. But at that point I couldn't walk. It hurt to walk. I had to use the restroom, and I was like creeping. It was painful. They had to use a wheelchair for me. I was in so much pain like no other, and it was just crazy because the start of my day, I went from just doing regular things, being regular, substituting, blah blah blah, having no symptoms. And had I not went to the hospital, all this could have happened at home, and I could have had my tube burst, and it'd be way worse than it was. But thankfully I went to the hospital as soon as I saw or felt something was off. So they did that and I had to have surgery. It wasn't like a major surgery. It's like one where they take like the little thing through your belly button. I forget the word for it. Endoscope, I believe. Endoscope, that type of surgery. So that's what I had to do and had to have done. And my husband and my same sister was there that was there when I lost Madison at the hospital. She was there again, so they were there, and all I really remember is going back, and then they were really sweet back there, so sweet. They were making me laugh, and then I was out, and the next time I came to, I was like waking up, and I was coughing because they had a tube down my throat. But yeah, other than that, I had a really successful surgery, and my doctor was like, everything was good. He told me that I had a cyst, but it wasn't bothering anything, so he just went ahead and removed that. He was amazing, amazing doctor. Like, I really like him. And my doctor with my OB, who was with London, they're like partners and they switch back and forth or whatever. But I really loved him, and I love her. So I have like a good doctor's office. In my first video, I mentioned that I switched from who I had with Madison doctor's offices. So I really love the one that I had now. And so, yeah, so I had surgery, and then I went home, and then the next day was my birthday. So it was crazy. It was just really, really crazy. And the downtime was different though, obviously, from when I had Madison. It was just like 3 days of recovery time, and then I was pretty much good to go. But it was still a really traumatic and hard situation, considering I had just lost my daughter the same week, the same week the year before, and it was right before my birthday again. And so having those two losses, I did have a point where I felt like, am I ever gonna have a baby? I don't want to be I know it sounds bad to say, but I was like, I don't want to be one of those women that have constant losses. And you know what I mean? You'll understand what I mean if you've ever lost a baby. So it was just really weird, but I knew what to do and how to get through it more than I did when I lost Madison, because I had lost Madison. So I kind of knew what would build myself up. I still had negative thoughts and feelings of like, oh my gosh, okay, Jesus, like, what's up? Like, why am I going through this again? Like, oh my gosh, like, why? And then the same week that I lost Madison. So it definitely was a period of sadness. But I wasn't angry like I was when I lost Madison. I wasn't angry. I was more sad and confused. With Madison, I was sad, confused, angry, depressed. Oh, I went through an array of emotions with her, especially because I was so far along. But not to say that I wasn't all those emotions, because I wasn't as far as long. I was like 4 weeks, 5 weeks. But just because I had went through loss, so I knew how to get through it. And I was like, my mindset was better. My mindset was more positive, even though it was a little bit negative by me being fearful the whole time after I found out I was pregnant. But it was definitely way more positive. And I was like, okay, look. And then I finally got to that point where it's like, I'm gonna have a baby. Like, this is not gonna be my end. I'm not gonna keep experiencing loss like this. And I know this is an attack, because the devil knows what's up. He knows my lineage, my generations, my children, myself, and my husband we're powerful, and God has blessed us with purpose, and he's trying to knock that out. Like, my mindset was more like warlike. Especially before I had London, if that makes sense. So I'll really get more into that in the next video, but that was my story with suffering from ectopic pregnancy loss. And like I said, it's definitely not something that's just, whatever, no pregnancy loss or infant loss is, but I just knew the seriousness of that. And then even in the midst of that situation, I was able to pull positive aspects and blessings, because I didn't have to have my tube removed. My tube didn't burst. I didn't have to have a dire emergency surgery situation. Like, quickly. I had to do it as quick as possible, but it wasn't like rushing back to the ER in a stretcher type deal. And that can happen. It's very common. That's a serious thing that happens, ectopic pregnancy. And that was a blessing that I didn't have to do that. It was early enough that I had time to converse with someone before I went back. That that was a blessing. And I just felt like these are all blessings, you know, just different little things that I was able to see even in the midst of the storm. And in that moment, I felt like I knew God was there. Even like with Madison, I knew he was there, but I was so angry. Like, I know you're here, but you're not going to do anything. But in that situation, I was more so sad, but I knew that he was in control, if that makes sense. So if you're suffering from ectopic pregnancy, have recently suffered from ectopic pregnancy, just know that he sees you and he sees your pain, and there is always a blessing after the storm. And just to stay positive, because let me tell you, if he blessed me, he'll bless you in 100 times more. And I pray that for you right now if you're suffering. If there's any questions that you have for me, or anything that you want to say, any statements, comments, or anything, you have a story and you relate to mine, definitely leave it down below. But I'm looking forward to next week's video, because I just wanted to tell my story in hopes that maybe somebody can relate, and just give you pieces to know that there is a rainbow after your storm. But definitely check out next week's video, because I'm going to be sharing everything that helped me with dealing and coping and healing with the loss of my baby at 19 weeks and my ectopic pregnancy, because I'm just looking forward to really explaining and maybe helping somebody get through a rough time that they're having themselves, and a husband and a wife and a family, and just letting you know, encourage you and letting you know it's not the end, and that there is healing on the other side of all of the bad stuff. So if you stay tuned this long and watch the whole video, thank you so much for watching. I'll have the trust in God and the healing and all that, and what I did to get through it next week. So definitely check that video out. And if there's anything you want to let me know, just leave it down below. Also, don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you guys in my next video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.